I am a blind 18-year-old. Ask me anything. My name is Isaac, and I've been legally blind for 4 years now. My vision is, at best correction, about 2400 in both eyes. Ask me anything. What's something that's difficult to do for blind people that we don't talk about much or at all? Gain a job, 100%. In general, after someone has adapted to blindness, it doesn't keep us from being able to work. However, it does make people wary of hiring us. The ADA makes discrimination against the disabled illegal when it doesn't interfere with the job being done, but it still happens. People can barely fathom seeing us alone in public, let alone working. Our applications tend to be thrown out, and 80% of us are unemployed. If there's one, what is the most challenging aspect of everyday life for you? Transportation. I use RTA, but that means I have to schedule my rides 24 hours in advance. I'm a very spontaneous person, so if I want to do something on a whim, I have to find a friend to take me. Because of this, I hope to move to a place with a taxi service soon. I'm not blind, but I have nystagmus, and I can't drive anymore because my vision is terrible. Are you excited about the future of self-driving cars and when they can get to a point where they are 100% reliable? Would you consider getting one for transportation? No doubt about it, I'm a big fan of AI in general, so I'd be ecstatic about that level of innovation. I'm still holding out for human-like androids though. That's what really interests me. I want a robot buddy, damn it. How are you reading this? As I have some vision, I'm able to use a screen to read if I zoom in on the text. Totally blind users use something called a screen reader, which speaks text aloud. How did you become blind? A very unusual way, actually. When I was 14, I got very sick. At the time, they didn't know what it was. I couldn't walk for 9 months due to leg stiffness, and my vision became extremely blurred. I went under a battery of tests, and the only thing that came back as normal was my VEP, a test of the optic nerve. My legs returned to normal after 2 years of physical therapy, but my eyes didn't. Years later, they found out via another bout of the same illness that I had something called PANDAS. Basically, when I get strep throat, my body can't differentiate between the bacteria and my nervous tissue. It attacked my brain. Normally, this caused OCD symptoms and a tic disorder, but on rare occasions it manifests as a movement disorder as well. There was no permanent damage to my brain, but because my brain was swollen at the time, it compressed my optic nerve and starved it of oxygen. I'm blind due to optic nerve damage. What's something your teachers did or could have done to help you with your learning? The most useful thing they've done is let me take pictures of the board in place of notes. I actually have a very funny story about something kind of stupid they almost did. For a few years I went to a private Catholic school because they had a disability scholarship and really nice extracurriculars I wanted in on. Their special education department, however, required students with IEPs to take American Sign Language because the intervention specialist taught the class. You can see my dilemma. Can you describe your education and maybe some challenges faced and how you think it could have been improved on the educator's part? I went blind just after the end of 8th grade, so my experiences apply to high school and the STNA program I'm taking this year. Most teachers haven't had a blind student before. I'm always the first blind kid when I get a new teacher, which is interesting. Most teachers are pretty understanding about it. Being blind is a very concrete thing, so I don't get a lot of the flack autistic and ADHD kids do when trying to get accommodations. A lot of them don't know what to do though, so I've become very used to explain my vision each time. I've had a few teachers who couldn't seem to grasp that glasses didn't fix my vision, which was frustrating. I actually had one teacher send me to the office for repeatedly not paying attention because I wasn't really looking at the board, and had my textbook open to the wrong page because the page number was, you guessed it, on the board. I ended up dropping that class. Do you dream? If so, have you noticed changes in your dream going from being able to see, then slowly losing your sight? When you dream now, are the images blurry or sharp? I dream. Usually now my dreams aren't very visually oriented, if that makes sense. What I see isn't blurry, but I only see what's important at a given time. There isn't much of a background. It must be difficult dealing with that at 18. How are your friends and family with it? Do they support you and help you out when you need it? Also, what are some of your favorite hobbies? My family has been fine with it, though I think my mother dreads doctor appointments now. A lot of them thought she was making up the problem initially because the first few tests were normal. My father wasn't in the picture for a while before that. My friends often forget I'm blind, which is a little funny to me. They'll point at something in the distance and I just look at them expectantly until they realize. It's hilarious, though I've learned to make constant blind jokes so that they don't forget so often. As for hobbies, I absolutely love theater. I'm a ballet dancer, but my real heart is in acting. Musical, plays, improv, I don't care either way. It's one of the few talents I feel naturally very strong in. What's your favorite band or genre of music? I like metal and alternative rock, mostly. But I like other genres too. Here's a short list of favorites: Avenged Sevenfold, My Chemical Romance, Green Day, System of a Down, Johnny Cash. However, my favorite songs are both by Ludo, Lake Pontchartrain, and Skeletons on Parade. What was the hardest to get used to when you got legally blind? How do you feel about that thing now? The initial loss was gradual, and I thought I just needed new glasses for a few months. When they figured out that my vision wasn't correctable, I was a little irritated, but I could work with it. School was probably the roughest. I didn't know how to explain my vision very well at first, and no matter how close I sat, I couldn't see the board. My freshman year teachers had trouble with that. They only confirmed it to be permanent last year, and by that point I was already expecting it. It didn't bother me at all. Overall, I don't mind being blind. I think it's an interesting addition to my life, and while it can be inconvenient, it's definitely not a bad thing at this point. How does being legally blind affect your social life? It gives me about 1 million more joke opportunities. Really though, I can't tell all that much. I put people off already because I'm a little too loud and I'm kinda weird. So I've always tended to make friends with the more outcasty kids at my school. We don't have a theater department, so I make friends less on a basis of similar interests and more on a basis of similar senses of humor. Fun fact though, my best friend at school is deaf. We start talking because both of our accommodations have us sitting in the front row of our classes. You are such a beautiful person. How does blindness affect your career choices? Honestly, I haven't changed them much at all. I like theater and I'm a dancer, so I plan to do those things to some extent. However, I enjoy not starving, so I'm also getting my STNA right now. The career school training me for that also awards its graduates with a $3,000 scholarship at a local college, which is enough to get me a phlebotomy certificate. That's what I want to do. Surprisingly, it's better to have a phlebotomist use touch alone to find a vein, because that's the more accurate way. I'm the perfect candidate for that. Do you ever worry about what you eat? I have severe OCD and I have to look at everything I eat really carefully. And my first thought imagining being blind would be not being able to make sure I'm not eating something with an insect in it, etc. Also, does it make it hard to take medication if you take any, since it would be hard to identify the markings? Oh hey, I have OCD too. Solidarity. I look very closely at my food and silverware. I have to get my face pretty close to do so. Medications I'm usually okay with. I know where I keep my anxiety meds and where we keep ibuprofen and Benadryl. And the pills are all massively different sizes and shapes. The only other thing I take is an inhaler for asthma, which is a non-issue. When you experience the world around you, what stands out? Do you feel that any of your other senses compensate for your low vision? I'm a very social person, so I guess people stand out. Talking to people, hanging on my friends like the clingy bastard I am, that sort of thing. I definitely pay more attention to my other senses. That's how I know if the fan is on or if it's crowded, etc. Would you care if you dated someone less attractive by society standards? Does looks come into dating decisions, or is it purely personality? I suppose you're 18 and may not have started dating yet as well, in which case, will looks be a concern for you? I've never cared much about society's idea of beauty, even with 20/20 vision. I'm a personality person. I do have personal preferences, I guess, like being short and broad shoulders, but other people's opinions don't mean much to me. Did you ever have relatively normal vision, and if so, what was it like for you mentally to experience a slow deterioration of sight? Yep, I had 20/20 vision with glasses growing up. Honestly, it wasn't that rough for me. The doctors not taking me seriously was much harder to deal with than going blind itself. When it wasn't the first 2 or 3 things they looked at, they immediately assumed either my mother was faking it, I was faking it, or it was psychological. That's actually possibly why the vision loss was permanent in the first place. Had they done the right testing initially and put me on antibiotics, the swelling wouldn't have lasted long enough to cause as much damage. What was it like adapting to blindness? What were some of your biggest struggles? Also, have your other senses gotten better to compensate? It was less dramatic than people expect, because it wasn't sudden. I sort of just learned to remember where things were. Not gonna lie, my biggest struggle in that sense was people not pushing in their chairs. I already had really good hearing. I pay more attention now. I recognize people's voices from further away. What is something you really miss not being able to see clearly? Photography negates most things for beauty, so I guess random things that pop up on my body from time to time.